The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Unity drifted through the darkness of space with the grace of a dancer. Its hull reflected the distant stars like polished silver, every curve designed for maximum efficiency and beauty. Inside the observation deck, Ambassador Thelenkor stood with his 6 fellow delegates, each representing different species from across the Galactic Council. They had traveled for 3 standard cycles to reach this remote sector of space, all to witness something that should have been routine. Thelenkor adjusted his ceremonial robes and reviewed the data pad in his primary hand. His secondary hands remained clasped behind his back in the traditional Vrexian posture of diplomatic patience. The information on the screen showed the basic specifications of the human warship they were about to inspect. Mass power output, crew complement, weapon systems, everything appeared adequate. Nothing remarkable, nothing concerning. "Ambassador, we are approaching the rendezvous coordinates," announced the ship's captain through the communication system. Her voice carried the melodic quality typical of her species, calm and professional. Thelenkor nodded, though the captain could not see him. "Proceed as planned. Inform our hosts that we have arrived." Around him, the other delegates murmured among themselves. To his left stood Commander Vril of the Kessian Defense Fleet, his crystalline form refracting the soft blue lighting of the observation deck. The Kessians had held military superiority in the outer sectors for nearly 1,000 years. Their ships were marvels of energy efficiency, capable of sustaining long campaigns with minimal resource expenditure. "I have reviewed the human specifications 3 times, Vril said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Their vessel massing at 2 million metric tons seems excessive for a ship of its class. Most curious." Dr. Yenna, the Peltharian scientist in their group, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Perhaps they have not yet mastered the art of compression technology. Young species often build larger before they learn to build smarter." Thelenkor had heard such assessments before. Every new species that joined the Galactic Council went through the same evaluation process. They would present their military capabilities, the Council would assess potential threats, and inevitably, the newcomers would fall within expected parameters. The galaxy had been at peace for 3,000 years because warfare had become mathematically unprofitable. Resources required to wage war exceeded any potential gains. Every species eventually learned this lesson. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 5 standard cycles now. They had been cordial, professional, and remarkably quiet. They established trade relationships, shared scientific data, and participated in cultural exchanges. They followed all protocols. They seemed eager to learn. Most importantly, they had not caused any problems. This military review was simply a formality, requested by the Council to complete humanity's full integration process. Every member species underwent the same inspection. It was not about distrust, it was about understanding. The galaxy worked because everyone knew where everyone else stood. "Sensors are detecting an anomaly," the captain announced, her melodic voice carrying a note of confusion. "Long-range scans show something approaching, but the readings are inconsistent." Thelenkor moved closer to the large viewport that dominated the observation deck. The other delegates joined him, forming a line of various shapes and sizes, all united in curiosity. "What kind of inconsistency?" Vril asked, his crystalline form shifting colors slightly as it always did when he became interested in tactical matters. "The mass readings keep fluctuating. Our computers are having difficulty establishing a solid lock. It is almost as if the object is larger than our sensors are calibrated to measure accurately." A ripple of amusement passed through the delegates. Dr. Yenna's mandibles clacked in what her species considered laughter. "Perhaps the humans are testing our sensor equipment. A clever way to begin a military demonstration." But Thelenkor did not laugh. Something in the captain's voice had changed. The confusion was real, not theatrical. He had known this captain for many years. "She did not make mistakes. All delegates, please secure yourselves," the captain said. "The human vessel is dropping out of faster-than-light travel." The viewport's protective filters automatically engaged, darkening slightly to protect their various optical organs from the bright flash that always accompanied FTL transitions. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear as reality bent around the emerging vessel. Then they saw it. Thelenkor's 3 hearts stopped beating for a full second. His mind could not immediately process what his eyes were reporting. Around him he heard gasps, clicks, whistles, and sounds of shock from every species present. Commander Vrill's crystalline body went completely clear, a stress response Thelenkor had never witnessed before. The human warship hung in space before them like a mountain that had decided to fly. It was not a ship. It was a fortress, a monument to some terrible purpose that the galaxy had forgotten millennia ago. The Harmonious Unity was considered a large vessel by diplomatic standards, measuring nearly 300 meters from bow to stern. This human ship dwarfed it, not by twice its size or even 10 times. The human warship was 50 times larger than their diplomatic vessel. It stretched across space like a city, its hull bristling with structures that could only be weapons arrays, sensor towers, and armor plating so thick it looked like the walls of a fortress. "By the ancient stars," someone whispered behind Thelenkor. He could not tell who had spoken. Perhaps it had been him. The ship was not elegant. It had none of the smooth curves and artistic lines that characterized modern military vessels. It was all brutal angles, flat surfaces, and geometric efficiency. It looked like someone had taken the concept of a warship and stripped away everything that was not essential to its singular purpose: combat. The hull was dark gray, almost black in places, with sections that appeared to be layered armor plating. Raised structures ran along its length like the spine of some ancient predator. Massive cylindrical objects protruded from multiple points, each one larger than the Harmonious Unity's main engine assembly. Weapons, Thelenkor realized with growing horror. Those were weapons. "Sensors have achieved full lock," the captain reported, her voice now stripped of its musical quality, replaced by something flat and shocked. "Confirmed mass 2.3 million metric tons. Length 4,200 meters. Width 800 meters. Height 600 meters. Power output readings are... I must recheck these numbers. They cannot be correct." Dr. Yenna had moved to her portable analysis station and was frantically entering commands. The specifications they submitted were accurate. "This vessel matches their declared parameters. We simply did not understand what those parameters meant in practical terms." Thelenkor forced his breathing to steady. He had been a diplomat for 40 years. He had negotiated treaties, resolved conflicts, and maintained peace across dozens of star systems. He would not panic now. He would not show fear, but his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the railing in front of the viewport. "They are hailing us," the captain announced. "Open the channel," Thelenkor said. His voice sounded steady. "Good." A human face appeared on the communication screen. Female with dark skin and darker eyes. She wore a uniform of deep blue with various insignia that meant nothing to Thelenkor. Her expression was pleasant, almost friendly. She smiled, showing her teeth in what humans considered a gesture of welcome, though many species found it unsettling. "Harmonious Unity. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth spaceship Indomitable. Welcome. We are pleased to host your inspection tour as requested by the Galactic Council. Permission to dock is granted. Please transmit your shuttle's approach vector at your convenience." The captain spoke calmly, professionally, as if her ship were not a titan of war that had just redefined everything the galaxy thought it knew about military power. Thelenkor realized he had stopped moving. They all had. Every delegate stood frozen, staring at the ship that should not exist. The galaxy had been peaceful for 3,000 years. Thelenkor suddenly wondered if that peace had been built on assumptions that were about to shatter. The shuttle bay of the Indomitable was larger than the main cargo hold of most military vessels Thelenkor had ever visited. The small diplomatic shuttle from the Harmonious Unity looked like a child's toy as it settled onto the landing pad, dwarfed by the massive space around it. The bay could easily accommodate 50 vessels of their size, perhaps more. As the shuttle's doors opened and the delegation descended the ramp, Thelenkor noticed the gravity immediately. It was stronger than standard galactic specifications, not uncomfortably so, but enough to be noticeable. His robes felt heavier. His steps required slightly more effort. The humans had not adjusted their artificial gravity to accommodate visitors. They expected visitors to adjust to them. Captain Rodriguez waited at the base of their ramp, flanked by 2 officers in similar uniforms. She was tall for her species, though Thelenkor had learned that humans varied considerably in height. What struck him was not her size but her bearing. She stood with the relaxed confidence of someone completely at ease in her environment, like a predator in its own territory. "Ambassador Thelenkor," she said. extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable. I hope your journey was comfortable." Thelankor performed the hand-grasping ritual he had practiced. The captain's grip was firm, much firmer than he had expected. Her hand felt strong, the bones solid beneath surprisingly tough skin. "Thank you, Captain Rodriguez. Your vessel is quite impressive." "She's a beast," Rodriguez said with a slight smile. "But she's our beast. Let me introduce my executive officer, Commander James Park, and our chief engineer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. They'll be assisting with the tour." The two officers nodded to the delegation. Thelankor noticed that all three humans had similar builds, muscular and compact. Not the lean efficiency of species that had evolved on lighter worlds, but the dense, powerful frames of beings shaped by stronger gravity and harsher conditions. As they left the shuttle bay, walking through corridors that were wide enough to drive vehicles through, Thelankor observed everything with a diplomat's trained eye. The walls were not the smooth composite materials common on modern ships. They appeared to be layered metal, welded and bolted together with visible seams. Everything looked heavy, solid, permanent. "Please excuse the utilitarian nature of our design," Rodriguez said as they walked. She seemed slightly embarrassed. "Human military architecture tends to prioritize function over form. We've been meaning to make things more aesthetically pleasing for visitors, but we haven't gotten around to it yet." Dr. Yenna clicked her mandibles politely. "Function is its own beauty, Captain. Though I am curious about your construction methods. These walls appear quite thick." 30-centimeter armor plating throughout most of the ship, Commander Park replied. "Double-hulled in critical sections. We believe in redundancy. If one system fails, 3 others can take over." Commander Vrill's crystalline form flickered with agitation. 30 centimeters? That seems excessive. Modern energy shields can deflect most weapons fire with far less mass. "We have shields too," Rodriguez said. "But we also have armor. And backup armor. And backup systems for the backup systems. Human engineering philosophy is that anything that can break eventually will break. So we build things that can survive breaking." They passed crew members in the corridors, and Thelankor studied them carefully. All humans, no other species. That was unusual. Most modern military vessels had mixed crews representing several species for efficiency and perspective. These humans nodded respectfully to their captain as they passed, but Thelankor noticed their posture, the way they moved. They were all physically imposing, even the smaller ones. They carried themselves with a certain readiness, an alertness that suggested they were always aware of their surroundings. One crew member walked past carrying a piece of equipment that must have massed 50 kilograms, holding it in one hand as casually as Thelankor might carry a datapad. The human did not appear to be straining at all. "Your crew seems remarkably strong," Thelankor observed, keeping his tone neutral. Rodriguez glanced at the crew member, who had just passed. "Earth gravity is 1.2 times standard galactic specification. We all grow up under those conditions. Makes us a bit more robust than species from lighter worlds. Our bones are denser, our muscles stronger per unit mass. It's just biology." Just biology, Thelankor thought. Just the product of evolving on a world that would crush most civilized species. They entered what Rodriguez called the observation lounge, a large room with windows that provided a view of space outside. The delegation spread out, examining various displays and interfaces. Everything was labeled in human languages, with no translation matrices installed. "You do not use standard galactic interface systems," noted diplomat Schradell of the Corvian Union. His tentacles gestured toward a control panel that looked entirely mechanical, rather than the holographic systems common throughout the galaxy. "We do on our civilian vessels," Lieutenant Commander Chen explained. "But military ships use isolated systems. No wireless connections, no universal interfaces. Everything is hardwired, manually operated. It makes systems harder to hack or disable remotely. Takes longer to use, requires more training, but it's more secure. You design your vessels anticipating electronic warfare," Vrill said slowly, his crystalline body shifting to a darker hue. "You expect enemies to attempt infiltration of your systems." "We expect everything," Rodriguez said simply. "Hope for the best, prepare for the worst." That's a human saying. It served us well. Thelankor moved to one of the windows and looked out at space. In the distance, he could see the harmonious Unity, small and delicate against the void. From here, the Indomitable stretched away in both directions, its hull a landscape of armor and weapons. Captain Rodriguez, he said carefully. Your vessel is unlike any warship currently in service with any Galactic Council member. May I ask why humanity chose such a distinctive design philosophy? Rodriguez joined him at the window. For a moment she was quiet, and Thelinkor thought she might not answer. Then she spoke, her voice thoughtful. Ambassador, humans fought each other for our entire history. Wars on land, on sea, in the air, and space. We developed weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. We built machines designed for nothing but killing other machines. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of destruction. When we finally achieved peace among ourselves and reached for the stars, we knew what was possible out there. We knew that the universe might not be friendly. She turned to face him directly. We came to the stars expecting war, Ambassador. We built ships that could survive it. We trained crews that could fight it. We prepared for the worst thing we could imagine, because we had already done the worst things imaginable to ourselves. We know what war looks like because we invented most of it. The observation lounge had gone silent. Every delegate was listening now. Then we met you, Rodriguez continued, and her expression softened. We met the council, all of you, and we learned that the galaxy had chosen peace. We learned that civilized species talk instead of fight, negotiate instead of destroy. It was the most beautiful thing we had ever discovered. But by then, we had already built these ships. So you keep them, Thelinkor said quietly. We keep them, Rodriguez agreed. Because even in a peaceful galaxy, it's good to be able to defend that peace if necessary. And because scrapping them would be wasteful. And because, well, we're very good at building warships. It's what we know. Commander Park stepped forward. If I may, Ambassador, the weapons deck is next on the tour. That's what you really came to see, isn't it? Thelinkor's 3 hearts beat faster. He was not sure he wanted to see the weapons deck. But he nodded. They had come for an inspection. They would complete their mission no matter what they found. The weapons deck stretched before them like a cathedral dedicated to destruction. The ceiling rose 15 meters overhead, supported by massive structural beams. The space was divided into sections, each one housing different weapon systems. And the scale of everything made Thelinkor feel small, in a way he had not experienced since childhood. Captain Rodriguez led them to the first station, where a massive cylindrical object dominated the space. It extended through the floor and ceiling, disappearing into the upper and lower decks. The cylinder was at least 4 meters in diameter, surrounded by machinery, power conduits, and cooling systems that hummed with barely contained energy. This is a magnetic accelerator cannon, Rodriguez explained, resting her hand on the metal housing with something that looked like affection. We call it a railgun. It uses electromagnetic force to accelerate a solid projectile to extremely high velocity. No explosives, no energy beams, just physics and a very fast piece of metal. Dr. Yenna approached the weapon cautiously, her scientific curiosity overcoming her obvious nervousness. How fast does the projectile travel? Depends on the power setting, Lieutenant Commander Chen replied. She pulled up a holographic display that showed various specifications. At minimum power, about 0.05% of light speed. At maximum power, we can push it to 0.3%. The delegates exchanged glances. Those velocities were not just fast. They were relativistic. At those speeds, even a small projectile would carry devastating kinetic energy. What do you fire from these cannons? Commander Vril asked, his crystalline body now a deep amber color that indicated deep concern. Usually tungsten carbide penetrators, Rodriguez said. Each one masses about 200 kilograms. We have explosive rounds, fragmenting rounds, and specialized penetrators for different target types. The ship carries 4,000 rounds for each cannon. Each cannon, Thelinkor repeated quietly. How many of these weapons does the Indomitable carry? 48, Rodriguez said simply. 12 on each facing, dorsal, ventral, port, and starboard, with overlapping fire arcs for full coverage. Thelinkor did the mathematics in his head. 48 cannons, each firing 200-kilogram projectiles at relativistic speeds, with 4,000 rounds per cannon. The total destructive potential was beyond anything in the current galactic military arsenal. One broadside from this vessel could obliterate a battle fleet. They moved to the next section where rows upon rows of vertical tubes lined the walls. Each tube was perhaps 2 meters in diameter, sealed with heavy blast doors. Missile tubes, Commander Park announced. We have 360 launch cells. Each cell can carry 1 heavy missile or 3 light missiles depending on mission requirements. Missiles are considered somewhat archaic, Diplomat Schradell said, his tentacles gesturing dismissively. Modern point defense systems can intercept them easily. Our missiles are somewhat difficult to intercept, Rodriguez said with a slight smile that made Thelancor deeply uncomfortable. They have their own defensive countermeasures, stealth coatings, and evasive programming. They're also very fast. And we typically fire them in large numbers. Chen brought up another holographic display showing different missile types. Standard high-explosive warheads for ship-to-ship combat, armor-piercing bunker busters for fortified positions, area denial cluster munitions, and our mining missiles which we use for asteroid resource extraction. Mining missiles? Dr. Yenna asked. Sometimes you need to break apart a large asteroid to access valuable minerals, Chen explained. So we developed high-yield warheads specifically for fragmenting large objects. We call them planet crackers, though that's not technically accurate. They could severely damage a planet's surface, but they couldn't actually crack a planet. That would require significantly more energy. The casual way she described weapons that could devastate a planetary surface made Thelancor's blood run cold. These were mining tools to the humans. Mining tools. They continued through the weapons deck, and each new system added to the growing horror that Thelancor felt settling into his bones. Point defense cannons that could track and destroy hundreds of targets simultaneously. Electronic warfare suites designed to blind, confuse, and disable enemy systems. Armor-penetrating torpedoes, particle beam projectors, kinetic kill vehicles. The list went on and on. Your species has devoted considerable resources to weapons development, Thelancor said carefully, trying to keep judgment out of his voice. Rodriguez nodded slowly. More than we should have, probably. But you have to understand where we come from, Ambassador. Earth is what the galactic community would classify as a Class 12 death world. Several delegates gasped. Class 12 was the highest danger rating. Worlds where life was so competitive, so violent, that evolution became an arms race of survival adaptations. Our planet has 1.2 times standard gravity, Rodriguez continued. Our weather systems are violent and unpredictable. We have storms that can flatten cities, waves that reach 30 meters high, earthquakes that tear the ground apart. Our biosphere is filled with predators, parasites, and diseases that evolved alongside us, constantly trying to kill us. She walked among the weapons as she spoke, and Thelancor realized she was completely comfortable here, surrounded by instruments of death. This was her natural environment. Every species on Earth fights for survival every day. The plants develop toxins, so herbivores develop immunity, so plants develop stronger toxins. Predators develop speed and strength, so prey develops better senses and camouflage, so predators develop better hunting strategies. Everything evolves to kill or avoid being killed. There is no peaceful equilibrium. There is only survival. And humans? Thelancor asked quietly. Humans are persistence predators, Commander Park said. We're not the fastest or the strongest, but we don't give up. We track our prey for days if necessary. We work in groups. We use tools. We plan ahead. We learn from our mistakes. And we never, ever stop. Dr. Yenna's mandibles clicked nervously. But you also developed intelligence, civilization, culture. You moved beyond mere survival. We did, Rodriguez agreed, but we brought our survival instincts with us. Ambassador, do you know how many major wars humanity has fought among ourselves? How many times we nearly drove our own species to extinction? Thelancor shook his head. We stopped counting after 10,000 documented conflicts. 10,000 wars, Ambassador. Some lasted for days, some for generations. We developed weapons that could poison the air, burn entire continents, turn our own planet uninhabitable. We built bombs that could kill millions in seconds. We created diseases as weapons. We turned science into a tool for destruction, as often as we used it for creation. She paused at a viewport that showed the stars beyond. We finally learned to stop fighting each other about 200 years ago. We unified as a species, not because we suddenly became peaceful, but because we found a common purpose, reaching for the stars. We channeled all that competitive energy, all that survival instinct, into exploration and expansion. But you still built weapons, Vril said. You still prepared for war. Because we know what we're capable of, Rodriguez said simply. If we could do such terrible things to ourselves, we had to consider that others might do the same to us. We hoped for friendship, but we prepared for conflict. It's our nature. Thelenkor looked around the weapons deck, seeing it with new understanding. This was not just a warship. It was a monument to humanity's violent past and their fear of a violent future. Every weapon system represented a lesson, learned in blood. A strategy developed through countless battles, a technology refined through generations of warfare. The ship's physician, a human woman named Dr. Lisa Okonkwo, had joined them during the tour. She had been quiet until now, but she spoke up suddenly. "If I may add something, Ambassador," she said. "Humans are also remarkably difficult to kill. We have redundant organs, rapid healing capabilities, and extreme injury tolerance. A human can lose 30% of their blood volume and continue fighting. We can survive injuries that would be fatal to most species. Our psychological resilience is equally robust. We adapt to almost any condition, endure almost any hardship." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "We evolved to survive on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. So we became very, very hard to kill." The tour was supposed to continue, but Thelenkor raised his hand. "Captain Rodriguez, I think we have seen enough for now. With your permission, I would like to request that you conduct a weapons demonstration, a practical test rather than just a technical briefing." Rodriguez exchanged glances with her officers. "Are you certain, Ambassador? Our weapons are quite powerful." "I am certain," Thelenkor said, though he was not certain at all. But the Council needed to see this. They needed to understand what humanity had brought to the galaxy. "Very well," Rodriguez said. "We'll set up a demonstration for tomorrow. There's a designated testing range in this system, an uninhabited asteroid field. We can use one of the larger asteroids as a target." As they left the weapons deck and returned to their shuttle, Thelenkor felt a weight on his shoulders that had nothing to do with the increased gravity. They had come expecting to see a standard military vessel. Instead, they had discovered something else entirely. The asteroid designated as Target 7 hung in space like a small moon. It was roughly spherical, measuring approximately 8 kilometers in diameter, composed primarily of iron and nickel with traces of other heavy metals. According to the scans, it massed about 300 billion kilograms. It was solid, ancient, and utterly unremarkable except for one fact. The Indomitable was about to destroy it. The Harmonious Unity maintained a position 50,000 kilometers from the target, what Captain Rodriguez had described as a safe observation distance. Thelenkor stood in the observation deck with the other delegates watching the human warship position itself. The Indomitable looked even more intimidating in this context, a predator preparing to strike. "All delegates, please ensure your personal shielding is active," announced the Harmonious Unity's captain. "We are detecting significant energy buildup from the human vessel. Protective protocols are now in effect." Thelenkor activated his personal shield, a small device that would protect him from radiation and energy spikes. Around him, the other delegates did the same. Commander Vril's crystalline form had turned almost completely transparent, a stress response his species exhibited in dangerous situations. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the communication channel, calm and professional. "Harmonious Unity, this is Indomitable. We are ready to begin the demonstration. For safety purposes, we recommend you increase your distance to 100,000 kilometers. 100,000 kilometers. That was twice the distance they had originally planned." Thelenkor felt a chill run through his body. "Captain Rodriguez," he said, "is that truly necessary?" "Ambassador, I want to be absolutely certain you're safe. What we're about to do generates significant secondary effects. Please increase your distance." The Harmonious Unity's captain did not argue. The diplomatic vessel's engines engaged, moving them further away from the target area. As they traveled, Thelenkor watched the Indomitable through the viewport. The human ship was not moving. It simply hung in space, oriented toward its target. waiting with the patience that Rodriguez had described as a human trait. "We are now at 100,000 kilometers," the Harmonious Unity's captain reported. "Acknowledged," Rodriguez replied. "Beginning weapons test in 30 seconds. The demonstration will consist of a single railgun firing at 15% power capacity. One gun, one shot, minimum operational power. Are you ready? One gun, one shot, minimum power." Thelencore's 3 hearts beat faster. If this was minimum power, what did maximum power look like? "We are ready, Captain Rodriguez." "Understood. Firing in 10 seconds, 9, 8. Thelencore gripped the railing in front of the viewport. The other delegates moved closer, their various forms of eyes, sensors, and optical organs focused on the distant asteroid. 3, 2, 1. Firing. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then Thelencore saw a brief flash from the Indomitable's hull, so quick he almost missed it. The railgun had fired. The projectile was invisible. It was traveling too fast to see. A 200-kilogram tungsten carbide penetrator moving at 1,500 kilometers per second. It crossed the distance to the asteroid in less than 3 seconds. When it hit, reality seemed to pause. The impact point on the asteroid's surface erupted in a flash of light brighter than a small sun. The kinetic energy of the projectile, traveling at 0.5% light speed, converted instantly into heat and pressure. The temperature at the impact site exceeded 50,000 degrees. The pressure wave propagated through the asteroid's structure faster than sound, faster than the material could react. The asteroid did not break apart. It did not fracture or shatter. It vaporized. 300 billion kilograms of iron and nickel, compressed over billions of years into solid rock, ceased to exist as a coherent object. The impact energy was so extreme that molecular bonds simply failed. Matter was converted to plasma, expanding outward in a sphere of superheated gas that glowed like a newborn star. The explosion was visible even from 100,000 kilometers away. The viewport's filters automatically darkened to maximum setting to protect the delegates from the intense light. Even through the filters, Thelencore had to look away, his optical organs burning from the brightness. "By the ancient stars," someone whispered. It might have been him. The plasmasphere expanded for several seconds, then began to cool and disperse. Fragments of the asteroid, the parts that had been far enough from the impact point to survive. Vaporization tumbled away in all directions, glowing red-hot. The largest fragment Thelencore could identify was perhaps 50 meters across, less than 1% of the original asteroid's mass. "Impact confirmed," Rodriguez's voice said calmly through the communication channel, as if she had just completed a routine equipment test. "Target destroyed, all weapon systems functioning within normal parameters." Thelencore could not speak. His translator implant checked itself twice, thinking there must be an error, because surely his brain was not processing correctly. "Doctor," Yenna's mandibles hung open in shock. Diplomat Schradel's tentacles had gone completely limp. Even Commander Vril, who had commanded military fleets for decades, stood frozen, his crystalline form completely colorless. "That was 15% power, Doctor," Yenna finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You said that was 15% power." "Yes, ma'am," Rodriguez confirmed. "We generally don't fire at full power except in emergency situations. The energy requirements are substantial, and it puts stress on the weapon systems. 15% is our standard operational setting for anti-ship combat." "Anti-ship combat," Vril repeated. His voice had lost all of its musical quality, becoming flat and mechanical. "That weapon could destroy any ship in the galactic fleet with a single shot." "Yes, sir, I expect it could," Rodriguez agreed. There was no pride in her voice, no boasting. She was simply stating a fact. "How many of these weapons does your ship have again?" Thelencore asked, though he knew the answer. He needed to hear it again, to confirm that his memory was correct. 48 railguns, Ambassador, 12 on each facing." 48. The Indomitable could fire 48 shots like the one they had just witnessed. Thelencore tried to imagine what that would look like in actual combat. A single broadside from this vessel could vaporize an entire battle fleet. All 12 guns on one side firing simultaneously at a group of ships. Nothing in the galaxy could survive that. Nothing. And you have more ships like this? Diplomat Schradel asked, his translator conveying the tremor in his voice. There was a pause before Rodriguez answered. The Indomitable is a Titan-class battleship. We have 12 vessels of this class in active service. We also have 57 Colossus-class heavy cruisers, which are about half the size and firepower of the Indomitable. Then there are the lighter vessels, destroyers, frigates, corvettes. The full United Earth Space Navy consists of approximately 300 combat vessels of various classes, 300 warships, 12 of them like the Indomitable. And that was just one species, one military force, one planet's contribution to the galaxy's defense capabilities, or offense capabilities, Thelenkor thought grimly. I believe I need to point out something. Commander Park's voice joined the conversation. Everything you've seen today is from a ship design that's nearly 20 years old. The Indomitable was commissioned 2 years before we made first contact with the Galactic Council. We've been upgrading and refining our technology since then, learning from you. Our newest ship designs are significantly more advanced. More advanced. The words hung in the air like a threat, though Thelenkor knew it was not meant that way. The humans were not threatening them. They were simply being honest, providing the information the Council had requested. But the implications were terrifying. Captain Rodriguez, Thelenkor said carefully, why did humanity build weapons of such power? What were you preparing to fight? Another pause. Ambassador, when we reached for the stars, we had no idea what we would find. We knew what we were capable of. We knew how violent and destructive a technological species could be because we had spent thousands of years being violent and destructive to ourselves. So we prepared for the worst-case scenario, which was that we would encounter another species like us, another civilization that had fought its way up from a death world, another culture that had perfected warfare over millennia of conflict. We built these ships to fight an enemy that thought like we did, that was as determined and relentless as we were. We built them to win a war against ourselves. The horror of that statement settled over the observation deck like a cold blanket. The humans had not built their military to fight the galaxy as it existed. They had built it to fight a mirror image of themselves, a species just as deadly and determined. They had prepared for total war against an enemy that did not exist. Except that enemy did exist. It was them. But you learned we were peaceful, Thelenkor said, trying to find hope in the situation. You discovered that the galaxy had chosen cooperation over conflict. We did, Rodriguez agreed, and her voice warmed slightly. It was the best discovery we've ever made, Ambassador. Learning that the universe was full of people who talked instead of fought, who traded instead of invaded, who built together instead of destroying each other. It gave us hope that maybe we could change too. That maybe all our violence and aggression could be chi. The conference room aboard the Harmonious Unity was designed for diplomatic discussions, with comfortable seating accommodating various body types and atmospheres suitable for most known species. But comfort was the last thing on anyone's mind as the delegates gathered in emergency session. They had returned from the Indomitable 6 hours ago, and none of them had rested. How could they? The galaxy had fundamentally changed, and they had to decide what to do about it. Thelenkor stood at the head of the table, his 3 hearts beating rapidly, despite his attempts to project calm. Around him sat the 6 other delegates representing the most powerful military and diplomatic forces in the Galactic Council. They were supposed to have been conducting a routine inspection. Instead, they had discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, power, and peace. We need to discuss our report to the Council, Thelenkor began. Each of you has had time to review the data, analyze the specifications, and witness the demonstration. I want your honest assessments, Commander Vril spoke first. His crystalline form had regained some color, though it was still darker than normal. From a purely military perspective, humanity represents a paradigm shift in galactic power dynamics. Their vessels are not merely superior to ours. They operate on entirely different principles. Our military doctrine for the past 3 millennia has been based on efficiency, surgical precision, and minimal resource expenditure. Human doctrine is based on overwhelming force, redundancy, and the assumption of total war. Total war, Dr. Yenna repeated. Her mandibles clicked nervously. I have been researching this concept in the human historical databases they provided. It means the complete mobilization of all resources, military and civilian, toward the destruction of the enemy. It means no distinction between combatants and non-combatants. It means fighting until one side achieves absolute victory or faces complete annihilation. Barbaric, muttered diplomat Krentos of the Peleran hegemony, a species known for their refined culture and distaste for violence. Perhaps, Thelancor said carefully, but also effective. We must acknowledge reality. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for 5 cycles, and in that time they have been peaceful, cooperative, and respectful of all treaties and protocols. They have given us no reason to fear them, but we must also acknowledge what we have seen. A single shot from one weapon on one ship completely destroyed an 8-kilometer asteroid, Diplomat Schradel said, his tentacles gesturing with agitation. And that ship has 47 more weapons just like it. And there are 11 more ships of that class. Ambassador Thelancor, one of those vessels could conquer a star system. A dozen of them could threaten the entire council. Could they? Challenged Commander Vril. Let us be precise in our assessment. Could humanity's military actually threaten the combined forces of the Galactic Council? The room fell silent. No one wanted to answer that question. Finally, Dr. Yenna brought up a holographic display showing various calculations and projections. I have been running simulations based on the specifications we gathered, she said quietly. The Galactic Council maintains a combined military force of approximately 30,000 vessels across all member species. In a conventional engagement, following standard tactical doctrine, we would have significant numerical superiority. 300 human ships against 30,000 of ours should be an easy victory for us. But, Thelancor prompted, because he could hear the hesitation in her voice. But human vessels do not follow conventional parameters. Their weapons have ranges far exceeding ours. Their armor can withstand damage that would destroy our ships. Their redundant systems mean they can continue fighting even after suffering catastrophic damage. And their crews? She paused, mandibles clicking. Their crews come from a death world. They are physically stronger, more resilient, and psychologically adapted to extreme stress and violence. In simulations, human vessels consistently achieve kill ratios of 20-to-1 or higher against equivalent council forces. 20-to-1, Vril repeated. His crystalline form flickered through several colors, processing this information. That would make the engagement approximately even. 300 human ships with a 20-to-1 advantage equals 6,000 effective vessels. Still outnumbered, but no longer overwhelmingly so. And that assumes we can actually coordinate 30,000 ships from dozens of different species, each with their own command structures, communication systems, and tactical doctrines, Diplomat Schradel added, while humanity fields a unified force with standardized equipment and training. In reality, their effective power may be even greater. Thelancor felt the weight of the galaxy settling on his shoulders. So what you are telling me is that humanity, a single species from a single planet, has achieved military parity with the entire Galactic Council. Not exactly parity, Dr. Yenna said. We would still have advantages in numbers, resources, and industrial capacity, but they would no longer be the easy victory we assumed. A war with humanity would be catastrophic for both sides. Millions would die. Entire worlds could be destroyed. The economic and social damage would take generations to repair, and the outcome would be uncertain. Which means, Thelancor said slowly, understanding dawning, that the fundamental equation of galactic peace has changed. For 3,000 years we have maintained peace because warfare was mathematically unprofitable. The cost of fighting always exceeded any possible gain. But now we have a species that can make war profitable again, Commander Vril finished. Not because they want to, but because they are capable of it. If humanity decided to expand aggressively, to take territory or resources by force, they might actually succeed. The equation has changed. Diplomat Krentos stood abruptly. Then we must act before they realize their power. We must neutralize the human threat while we still have numerical superiority. We must strike first. Absolutely not, Thelancor said firmly. Humanity has committed no aggression. They have violated no treaties. They have been model citizens of the galactic community. We will not start a war based on fear of what they might do. But Ambassador, no. Thelancor's voice carried the authority of his 40 years as a diplomat. Listen to what you are proposing. You want to attack a peaceful species? because they are capable of defending themselves effectively. You want to start a war to prevent a war that may never happen. That is not justice. That is not how the Council operates. He moved around the table, making eye contact with each delegate in turn. I spoke with Captain Rodriguez at length after the demonstration. I asked her directly about humanity's intentions. Do you know what she told me? She said that humans came to the stars expecting war, but they found peace instead. And that peace was the most beautiful thing they had ever discovered. She said they built their weapons to fight, but they maintain them to protect. She said their greatest hope is that they never have to use them. Pretty words, Krentos muttered. Perhaps, Thelenkor agreed. But I believe them. Not because I am naive, but because I am a diplomat. I have negotiated with hundreds of species over decades of service. I know when someone is lying. Captain Rodriguez was not lying. Humanity wants peace. They just want to be strong enough that no one can take that peace away from them. Then what do you propose? Vril asked. Thelenkor took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to suggest would be controversial. I propose we embrace them. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Think about it. For 3,000 years, we have maintained peace through economic interdependence and mutual agreement. But those are soft powers, easily disrupted by a determined aggressor. Now we have the opportunity to add hard power to our peace. Real deterrence. Absolute security. You want to ally with them, Dr. Yenna said. I want to make them part of us, Thelenkor corrected. I want to integrate human military doctrine with council strategy. I want their ships patrolling our borders, protecting our trade routes, defending our worlds. I want everyone in the galaxy to know that an attack on any council member is an attack on all of us, including the humans. Because if potential aggressors know that attacking us means facing human warships, they will choose peace instead. Diplomat Shradel's tentacles waved thoughtfully. You want to turn humanity into the galaxy's guardians. I want to give them a purpose that aligns with their nature, Thelenkor said. Humans are warriors. That is what their world made them. We cannot change that and we should not try. But we can give them something worth fighting for. We can make them the protectors of the peace they value so much. And if they refuse? Krentos asked. If they decide they would rather be conquerors than protectors, then we will have made an enemy we cannot easily defeat, Thelenkor admitted. But I believe that is less likely than if we reject them or threaten them. Give someone a reason to be good, and most species will choose good. Give them only fear and suspicion, and even peaceful people will arm for war. The room was silent as the delegates considered this. Finally, Commander Vril spoke, his crystalline form shifting to a lighter, calmer blue. The ambassador has a point. From a strategic perspective, having humanity as allies is infinitely preferable to having them as enemies. And it will end. The massive council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a structure so large it could be seen from 3 star systems away. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered in a circular arrangement, each seated according to their world's position in the galactic arm. The air hummed with translation devices, turning clicks, whistles, and rumbles into understandable speech for all present. Ambassador Telrix of the Vrelnathi Empire stood at the central podium, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of welcome. His scaled skin shimmered under the artificial lights as he addressed the assembly, with a voice that carried both authority and barely concealed condescension. Today marks another joyous occasion, Telrix announced, his translator rendering his words into dozens of languages simultaneously. We welcome a new species into our galactic family. The humans of Earth have finally developed the capability to reach beyond their atmosphere in a meaningful way. Their representative is here to formally petition for provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates expressed curiosity, others indifference. The humans were known to most as a young race, barely worth noticing. Their spacecraft were primitive chemical rockets. Their largest vessel was a small station orbiting their home world. According to every scan and observation conducted over the past 30 years, humans were at least 2 centuries away from developing faster-than-light travel on their own. Director Chen Wei walked calmly to the podium as Ambassador Telrix stepped aside. She was a woman in her mid-50s, her black hair streaked with gray, her dark eyes sharp and observant. She wore a simple blue uniform with no decorations or medals. Everything about her appearance, suggested humility and deference. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Chen began, her voice steady and clear. Earth is grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic community. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. A noble sentiment, replied Ambassador Quellis of the Quellan Communion, his gelatinous form rippling with approval. Tell us, Director Chen, what does Earth bring to this council? What unique perspective or capability can your species offer? Chen smiled slightly. Before I answer that question, I believe there is something the council should see. With your permission, I would like to transmit a set of coordinates to the observation array. The council's head administrator, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline structure, processed the request. Very well. The coordinates have been received. Activating deep space sensors now. Holographic displays materialized above, each delegate's station showing the vast emptiness of space in various regions around Earth's solar system. The images showed nothing unusual at first, just the expected debris fields, asteroids, and distant planetary bodies. I see nothing but empty space, Telrix said with obvious irritation. Is this some kind of joke? Not at all, Chen replied calmly. Computer disengage stealth protocols. Authorization Chen Alpha 779. What happened next would be discussed in council chambers for generations to come. The empty regions of space suddenly blazed with light as hundreds of vessels materialized. Sleek warships appeared in formation around Earth's moon. Massive carriers emerged from positions near Mars, cruisers and destroyers uncloaked in the asteroid belt. Mining stations became visible on several moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Fortified bases revealed themselves on Titan, Europa, and Ganymede. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in alarm, confusion, and anger. Security protocols activated automatically, and defensive shields hummed to life around the station. The holographic displays showed energy signatures that rivaled those of some of the council's most advanced military powers. Order! The crystalline administrator's voice boomed, silencing the commotion. Director Chen, you will explain this immediately. Chen remained perfectly composed at the podium, her hands folded behind her back. What you are seeing is Earth's actual military and industrial capacity. For the past 32 years, humanity has been constructing and operating a cloaked fleet. We have 378 combat vessels, 12 carrier platforms, 47 mining and manufacturing stations, and defensive installations on 8 celestial bodies within our home system. Ambassador Telrix's scales flushed a dark crimson, a sign of rage among his species. This is an outrage. You have deceived this council. You have hidden your true strength while pretending to be a primitive species. We never claimed to be primitive, Chen corrected gently. The council made that assumption based on observations of our unclassified operations. We simply chose not to correct those assumptions until we understood the nature of the galaxy we were entering. A delegate from the Morphean Collective, HE, species resembling a cluster of floating tentacles, spoke up with curiosity rather than anger. But why? Why go to such extraordinary lengths to hide your capabilities? The resources required for such an endeavor must have been staggering. Chen nodded. They were. This project required every nation on Earth to cooperate. We pooled our resources, shared our technology, and worked in complete secrecy. The reason is simple. We studied history. She activated her own display, showing data streams and historical records. Your council has inducted 73 new species in the past 500 years. We obtained records of 41 of those first contact scenarios through various means. In 27 cases, the new species entered negotiations from a position of weakness. Of those 27, 16 were immediately exploited, forced into unfavorable trade agreements, or had their resources claimed by more powerful members. 7 more were subjected to military occupation within their first decade of membership, justified under various pretexts. The council chamber had grown quiet, with many delegates shifting uncomfortably. Chen continued, her voice growing firmer. Humanity learned long ago that wolves respect other predators, not prey. We have spent our entire history fighting wars among ourselves. We know what happens to the weak when they encounter the strong. We chose to ensure that when we met you, we would meet as equals, not as supplicants begging for scraps. Ambassador Quellis rippled with what the translator interpreted as distress. But the principle of open contact, of honest negotiation, was violated the moment your species sent military reconnaissance ships disguised as scientific surveys. Chen interrupted, her tone sharp. She brought up new data on the displays. 3 years ago, a Quellan vessel conducting a supposed biological survey of Earth's oceans carried weapon systems and stealth recording equipment. 2 years ago, a Vrelnati merchant ship that claimed engine trouble while passing through our system spent 6 days mapping our defensive satellites and communication networks. She turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates around the chamber. 7 different council species have sent covert intelligence-gathering missions to Earth. You were evaluating us as a potential threat or resource, so do not speak to me of honesty and open negotiation when you were preparing to exploit or neutralize us from the beginning. The silence that followed was profound. Chen had just accused multiple council members of espionage and hostile intent, and she had the evidence to support every claim. The careful diplomatic dance that usually characterized council proceedings had been shattered. Finally, the crystalline administrator spoke again, its voice measured and grave. This session is adjourned. The council will reconvene in 6 hours to address these revelations and decide on an appropriate response. Director Chen, you and your vessel are confined to this station until further notice. Chen bowed slightly. As you wish. Earth's fleet will remain in defensive positions within our home system. We have no hostile intentions toward any council member, but we will not disarm, and we will not be intimidated. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many casting hostile or fearful glances at the human representative, Chen stood alone at the podium. Her expression remained calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she finally allowed herself to feel the weight of what had just occurred. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy not as children seeking guidance, but as adults demanding respect. The question now was whether the galaxy would accept Earth's terms, or whether humanity had just started a war they might not be able to win. The 6 hours passed like 6 days. Director Chen remained in the diplomatic quarters assigned to her, a comfortable suite designed to accommodate various biological life forms. She spent the time reviewing messages from Earth, where the revelation had been broadcast live to every nation. The response from her homeworld was mixed. Some praised her boldness, others feared she had provoked a conflict humanity could not win. President Okafor sent a simple message. We stand behind you. Do not back down. When the council reconvened, the atmosphere in the chamber was drastically different. Gone was the ceremonial politeness that had characterized the first session. Security drones floated near the ceiling, their weapons ports visible and active. Several delegations had brought additional military advisors. The air crackled with tension. Ambassador Telrix took the podium first, his forearms gesturing aggressively. The Vrelnathi Empire demands immediate action. Earth has demonstrated that it is a deceptive, militaristic species that cannot be trusted. We propose the following. Earth must dismantle its hidden fleet within 90 days. All military vessels must be decommissioned, and their technology surrendered to Council oversight. Earth will accept permanent monitoring stations in orbit around their planet. Failure to comply will result in sanctions and, if necessary, enforcement action. The threat was clear. Enforcement action meant military intervention. Several delegates murmured in agreement, particularly those from species that prided themselves on martial strength. The idea that a newcomer species had hidden such power was deeply unsettling to the established order. Chen stood to respond, but Ambassador Quellis raised one of his gelatinous appendages, requesting to speak first. The Quellan representative's form seemed to pulse with agitation. The Quellan communion is deeply troubled, Director Chen. Quellis began, his voice carrying notes of genuine hurt. We have always operated on principles of transparency and mutual trust. Your revelation has shaken the very foundation of how we conduct first contact. If you can hide an entire fleet, what else might you be concealing? How can we trust anything you say? More delegates voiced their agreement. The Morphean Collective representative spoke of violations of galactic norms. The Hexarian Trade Union worried about what hidden weapons or technologies Earth might possess. A small delegation from the Pilthian Federation, A species that had been exploited during their own first contact centuries ago, watched quietly but with understanding in their large eyes. Chen waited for the voices to die down before she spoke. Her tone was respectful but firm. I understand your concerns, but let me address the accusation of bad faith. At no point during preliminary contacts did Earth sign any agreement requiring us to reveal our full military capacity. At no point did we claim to be defenseless. The Council made assumptions and we chose not to correct them. That is not deception. That is strategy. Strategy? Telric snarled. You speak as if we are enemies to be outmaneuvered rather than potential allies to be trusted. Are you our allies? Chen asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a blade. Because allies do not send spy ships. Allies do not conduct covert surveillance. Allies do not evaluate each other as potential resources to be exploited. She activated her display again, showing more evidence. The Vrelnathi Empire has a documented history of demanding military basing rights on newly inducted worlds. The Quellan Communion, for all its talk of peace, has economic treaties with 15 species that are so one-sided, they amount to resource extraction without compensation. The Hexarian Trade Union controls shipping routes through systems that do not belong to them, charging fees that cripple local economies. Each accusation was backed by data, by trade records, by testimony from affected species. Chen had done her research thoroughly. She was not just defending Earth's actions, she was putting the Council itself on trial. We studied your history, Chen continued. We saw patterns. We saw how power operates in this galaxy. And we decided that humanity would not become another species that is granted membership only to find ourselves stripped of autonomy and dignity. We came to the stars prepared, not paranoid. A new voice entered the debate. It came from Ambassador Krell, a representative of the small but respected Dalthonian Accord. The Dalthonians were an ancient species, one of the Council's founding members, known for their wisdom and neutrality. Director Chen makes valid points, Krell said slowly, his deep voice resonating through the translation systems. The Council has at times taken advantage of less developed species. It is uncomfortable to acknowledge, but it is true. However, there is another concern that must be addressed. If Earth felt it necessary to hide its strength, what does that say about us? What have we become if a new species looks at us and sees threats rather than friends? The question created a ripple of uncomfortable silence. Some delegates looked ashamed, others defensive. The crystalline administrator let the moment stretch before speaking. Ambassador Krell raises a profound question, but we cannot address our failings without also addressing Earth's approach. Director Chen, your species has admitted to decades of systematic deception. You have built weapons of war while we believed you were focused on peaceful exploration. How can the Council feel secure with such a militarized newcomer in our midst? Chen took a deep breath. This was the moment she had prepared for, the question she knew would come. You want security? Then understand this. Earth's fleet was not built to threaten you. It was built to ensure that no one could threaten us. Every human ship is positioned defensively within our home system. We have made no moves toward any Council member's territory. We have not threatened trade routes or borders. Our weapons have never been aimed at any of you. But they could be, Telrix interjected. That is the problem. You have the capability to wage war. So do you, Chen shot back. Every species in this chamber has military forces. Some of you have fleets that dwarf ours. The Vrelnathi Empire alone has over 3,000 warships. Are we to believe those are all for defensive purposes? Or is it only acceptable for established members to have military power? The Vrelnathi ambassador's scales flushed again, but he had no ready answer. Chen pressed her advantage. Here's the truth that makes you uncomfortable. Earth refuses to be weak. We refuse to enter this galactic community as beggars hoping for mercy. We have earned our place through our own efforts, our own ingenuity, our own sacrifice. And yes, we prepared for the possibility that some of you might not welcome us as equals. If that makes us untrustworthy in your eyes, then perhaps you should examine what that says about your own intentions. Ambassador Quellis rippled with visible distress. This is not the foundation for a peaceful relationship. Trust cannot be built on suspicion and hidden daggers. Trust is earned, not demanded, Chen replied. Earth is willing to earn your trust through our actions. We will be transparent about our capabilities going forward. We will participate in joint operations and exchange scientific knowledge. But we will not disarm. We will not make ourselves vulnerable to appease your discomfort. Give us time to prove ourselves or reject us now. Those are the only two options we will accept. The session devolved into heated arguments among the delegates themselves. Some species sided with the Vrelnathi position, demanding Earth's fleet be neutralized. Others, particularly smaller or formerly exploited species, saw humanity's approach as a template they wished they had followed. The Pilthian Federation representative stood and publicly thanked Earth for having the courage to refuse victimhood. As the debates raged, Chen remained standing at the podium, appearing calm despite the storm swirling around her. She had thrown the council into chaos, but it was necessary chaos. Earth would not compromise on this. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to be dictated to by species who had already proven themselves capable of exploitation. The administrator finally called for order. This matter requires deeper deliberation. The council will establish a special tribunal to investigate Earth's actions and determine appropriate responses. Director Chen, you will be expected to provide full testimony. This session is adjourned. As the delegates departed, many shooting hostile glares at the human representative, Chen felt the weight of her situation fully. She had defended Earth's position, but in doing so, she had made enemies. The next phase would determine whether humanity's gambit had been brilliant strategy or catastrophic miscalculation. The special tribunal convened 3 days later in a smaller chamber designed for formal inquiries. The room was circular, with the judges seated on an elevated platform. 7 senior council members had been selected to hear testimony and make recommendations. Ambassador Krell of the Dalthonian Accord served as lead arbiter, his ancient eyes missing nothing. Director Chen entered the chamber accompanied by a new figure. Admiral Marcus Stone walked beside her, his military bearing evident in every step. He was a tall man in his early 60s, his hair gray but his body still powerful and fit. His uniform was dark blue with minimal insignia, and his weathered face showed the lines of someone who had carried enormous responsibility for many years. The tribunal began with formal questions about the timeline of Earth's hidden fleet construction. Chen provided detailed answers, explaining how the project had begun shortly after humanity's first detection of alien signals. The realization that they were not alone in the universe had been both exhilarating and terrifying. We spent 2 years just debating our approach, Chen explained. Some nations wanted to announce ourselves immediately, to reach out in friendship. Others urged caution. In the end, caution won because we intercepted enough communications to understand that the galaxy was not the peaceful utopia we had hoped for. Ambassador Quellis leaned forward, his gelatinous form rippling. You speak of caution, but you built weapons of war. That is not caution, that is militarism. Admiral Stone spoke for the first time, his voice deep and measured. With respect, Ambassador, you are wrong. Caution is exactly what it was. I was chosen to command this project because I had experience in strategic planning. My first task was to study every first contact scenario in recorded galactic history that we could access. He activated a display showing statistical analysis. We found records of 109 first contact scenarios spanning the last 2,000 years. Of those, 67 resulted in favorable outcomes for both species involved. 42 resulted in exploitation, subjugation, or conflict. Those are not good odds when the survival of your entire species is at stake. The tribunal judges examined the data carefully. Ambassador Krell spoke thoughtfully. These statistics are concerning, though I suspect there is selection bias in which records survived and were accessible to you. Nevertheless, your concern is understandable. But understanding your motivation does not excuse your methods. Why such extensive militarization? Stone stood straighter, his hands clasped behind his back in a military stance. Because history taught us that the weak do not get to choose their fate. Every time a technologically inferior species encountered a superior one, the outcome was determined by the stronger party's intentions. We decided that humanity would never be in that position. We would meet you as equals, or we would not meet you at all. A judge from the Hexarian Trade Union, a being with crystalline wings, spoke with obvious skepticism. But you must have known that eventually your deception would be revealed. What did you hope to accomplish? Chen answered this time. Time. We needed time to build our capabilities, to study you, to understand the galactic power structure. If we had revealed ourselves immediately, some among you would have seen us as a threat to be neutralized or a resource to be claimed. By the time we revealed our fleet, it was large enough to make military action against us costly. We forced you to negotiate rather than dictate. That is a very cynical view of this council. a Quellan judge said with evident hurt in his translated voice. Is it? Stone challenged. Director Chen has already presented evidence of covert intelligence operations conducted against Earth. Should we have simply ignored that? Should we have trusted species who were spying on us while speaking words of friendship? The judges had no immediate response. The evidence of surveillance was undeniable and embarrassing to several council members. Krell broke the uncomfortable silence. Admiral Stone, help us understand something. The resources required to build and maintain a fleet of this size must have been enormous. How did humanity accomplish this while appearing to be a barely spacefaring species? Stone allowed himself a slight smile. Through sacrifice and unity. For 32 years, every nation on Earth contributed. We diverted resources from other projects. We made difficult choices about where to invest our limited wealth. Most importantly, we did something that humanity had rarely done in its history. We worked together toward a common goal without conflict. He paused, and his expression grew more serious. You have to understand what this project meant for us. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We killed each other over resources, ideology, territory, religion. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times. But when we discovered we were not alone in the universe, something changed. We finally had a challenge that required all of humanity to unite, Chen added quietly. The Hidden Fleet program gave us purpose. It forced us to see beyond our petty differences and recognize that we were all humans first, citizens of individual nations second. In that sense, you gave us a gift even before we met you. You gave us a reason to become better than we were. One of the judges, a small being from the Pilthian Federation, spoke for the first time. Her voice was gentle but clear. I understand what you are saying because my people learned similar lessons. We trusted the Council during first contact. We were honest about our limitations. Within 10 years, our mineral rights had been sold to corporations we had no power to regulate, and our young people were leaving our world because they could find no opportunity at home. It took us a century to recover our independence. I wish we had been as wise as you. Several judges shifted uncomfortably at this testimony. It was clear that not everyone on the tribunal viewed Earth's actions as completely unjustified. Ambassador Krell returned to questioning. Let us address the broader issue. Admiral Stone, what are Earth's intentions now? You have revealed your fleet. What do you want from this council? Stone's answer was direct and unhesitating. Respect. Fair treatment. The same rights and considerations given to any other member species. We do not want territory beyond our home system. We do not want to dominate trade routes or demand tribute. We want to be left alone to develop at our own pace, to trade fairly with those who wish to trade with us, and to contribute to galactic security as partners, not subordinates. And if the Council decides that Earth's military presence is unacceptable, the Hexarian judge asked, what then? The question hung in the air like a blade. Everyone in the chamber understood what was really being asked. Would Earth fight if threatened? Stone met the judge's eyes steadily. Then Earth will defend itself. We did not build this fleet as a bluff. Every ship, every weapon, every station is fully operational and crewed by trained personnel. We hope it never comes to conflict. War would be catastrophic for all involved, but we will not surrender our ability to defend ourselves under any circumstances. Chen added, we are offering the Council a choice. Accept us as equals and partners and we will prove ourselves worthy of that acceptance through our actions. Work with us in good faith and we will reciprocate, but attempt to intimidate or coerce us, and you will find that humanity does not bend to threats. A different judge, one who had been silent until now, spoke in a grinding mechanical voice. Some might call your position arrogant. You are one species among thousands. Your fleet, while impressive for your age, is not large enough to threaten the combined might of the Council. Admiral Stone nodded. You are correct. If the entire Council united against Earth, we would eventually lose. But the cost would be substantial. Our doctrine is based on asymmetric warfare. We would not fight the kind of large fleet actions you are accustomed to. We would strike supply lines, use guerrilla tactics, make every system we contest a grinding nightmare. We have spent decades studying your military histories, your tactics, your weaknesses. Yes, you would win eventually, but you would bleed for it. He let that sink in before continuing. But why would you choose that path? We are not your enemies. We have not threatened anyone. We simply refuse to be victims. Is that really worth a war? The tribunal session continued for hours, covering every aspect of Earth's program. Stone described the fleet's composition, its defensive capabilities, and its limitations. He was surprisingly transparent about what humanity could and could not do militarily. The message was clear. Earth was strong enough to defend itself, but not strong enough to threaten the Council's major powers. They occupied a careful middle ground. As the session drew to a close, Ambassador Krell addressed both Chen and Stone directly. You have given this tribunal much to consider. Your candor is appreciated, even if your methods remain controversial. The tribunal will deliberate and present recommendations to the full council within 1 week. You may return to your quarters. As they left the chamber, Chen and Stone walked in silence for a long time. Finally, Stone spoke quietly. Do you think we convinced them? Chen shook her head slowly. I do not know. But we told them the truth. Earth will not be anyone's puppet or victim. Whatever they decide, at least we made that clear. What neither of them knew was that their testimony had been broadcast throughout council space. The tribunal had been deliberating for 3 days when the universe decided to interrupt with its own agenda. It began with a silence that was more terrifying than any alarm. Communication relays along the galactic rim simply stopped transmitting. 3 colony worlds of the Quellan Communion went dark within the span of an hour. Automated distress beacons activated and then cut off mid-signal. The Council's emergency response protocols engaged immediately. But by the time scout ships reached the affected systems, they found only devastation. The Council chamber filled within minutes of the first confirmed reports. Delegates arrived in various states of dress and preparedness, the formality of proper protocol abandoned in the face of crisis. Holographic displays showed fragmentary data from the dead worlds, cities reduced to rubble, orbital facilities torn apart, and most disturbing of all, no survivors. Director Chen and Admiral Stone were summoned from their quarters. As they entered the chamber, they could see the panic on faces both familiar and alien. Ambassador Quellis was in visible distress, his gelatinous form pulsing erratically. The attacks had targeted his people. The crystalline administrator's voice cut through the chaos. Attention. We have confirmed reports of hostile action against Council territory. The attacking force has been identified as the Korthak Swarm. A murmur of fear rippled through the chamber. Chen noticed that even the most militant delegates looked shaken. She leaned toward Stone and whispered, What is the Korthak Swarm? Stone had already pulled up classified files on his personal display. His face went pale as he read. Trouble. Serious trouble. They are a hive mind species from beyond charted space. The Council has been monitoring them for decades but considered them contained to their home region. According to these files, they operate with perfect coordination, no individual will, just collective purpose. Previous encounters suggest they assimilate organic matter to grow their numbers. As if to confirm Stone's assessment, new data flooded into the Council's systems. A Vrelnathi military outpost had detected a massive fleet entering Council space. The numbers were staggering. Thousands of biomechanical ships, each one grown rather than built, all moving with synchronized precision. Ambassador Telrix took the podium, his earlier aggression replaced by genuine fear. The swarm is employing tactics we have never observed before. They are not following any predictable pattern. Our defensive fleets are being outmaneuvered. 2 more worlds have gone silent in the past hour. They are moving faster than we anticipated. A Hexarian admiral appeared on the holographic display, calling in from a command ship. They are using some kind of disruption field that interferes with our long-range sensors. By the time we detect them, they are already engaging. Our standard fleet formations are being torn apart. We need to establish a unified defensive line, but coordination between different species forces has been difficult. That last word was a diplomatic understatement. The Council's military forces came from dozens of different species, each with their own doctrines, communication protocols, and command structures. What had seemed like diversity in peaceful times was now revealing itself as a critical weakness. Stone watched the tactical displays with a professional eye. He could see the problem immediately. The Council's forces were individually powerful but collectively uncoordinated. They were reacting to the swarm's attacks rather than anticipating them. Ships arrived at defensive positions only to find the enemy had already moved on. Response times were measured in hours when they needed to be measured in minutes. Chen caught Stone's eye and saw the same thought reflected there. This was an opportunity, though one born of tragedy. She stood and requested permission to speak. The administrator acknowledged her. Director Chen, unless Earth has information relevant to the current crisis, this is not the time for— We can help, Chen interrupted, her voice carrying through the chamber with unexpected authority. Earth's fleet can assist in the defense against the swarm. The statement was met with stunned silence, followed by eruption of voices. Ambassador Telrix's scales flushed with anger even in the midst of crisis. This is not the time for political maneuvering. We do not need your primitive vessels getting in the way of actual military operations. Admiral Stone stepped forward, his tone sharp and professional. With respect, Ambassador, your actual military operations are failing. You have lost 5 worlds in the past 6 hours. Your response time is too slow, and your coordination is non-existent. You are fighting like 47 different militaries, not one unified force. And you can do better? The Hexarian Admiral challenged from the display. You have never faced the swarm. You have never fought in a galactic-scale conflict. What makes you think you can help? Stone's answer was blunt. Because humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We are very, very good at it. And more importantly, our entire fleet operates under a single unified command structure. Every ship follows the same tactical doctrine. We can make decisions and implement them in minutes, not hours. Chen added, We are offering our assistance freely, without conditions. Our fleet is not large enough to defeat the swarm alone, but we can provide rapid response capability, while your forces organize a more effective defense. Let us prove our worth when it actually matters. Ambassador Krell, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. The Council is in no position to refuse help regardless of its source. Director Chen, what exactly are you proposing? Stone brought up tactical displays showing Earth's fleet positions. We have 150 combat-ready vessels that can be mobilized within 3 hours. They are fast, heavily armed for their size, and crewed by personnel trained in rapid deployment scenarios. Give us coordinates for the most threatened systems, and we will engage the swarm forces there. We will buy you time to organize a proper defensive line. The Quellan ambassador rippled with emotion. 3 of the lost worlds were Quellan colonies. If there is any chance of saving lives, any chance at all. His voice trailed off, the desperation clear. The crystalline administrator processed for a moment, then made a decision. The Council accepts Earth's offer of assistance. Admiral Stone, you will coordinate with our military command. All available tactical data on the swarm is being transmitted to your vessel now. Be advised, the swarm has destroyed every force that has engaged them so far. Stone nodded grimly. Understood. We will do what we can. Director Chen will remain here to serve as liaison. I need to return to my flagship immediately. As Stone left the chamber at a run, Chen turned to address the assembled delegates. Earth did not reveal its fleet to intimidate you or seek dominance. We built it to protect ourselves. But protection means nothing if you only use it selfishly. Let us show you what humans can do when we fight for others. Within 2 hours, Earth's fleet was in motion. Admiral Stone commanded from the bridge of the EFS Defiant, a heavy cruiser that served as the flagship. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of all human vessels as they accelerated toward the first crisis point, the Cerulean system, where a swarm vanguard was approaching a colony of 2 million souls. The Quellan defense fleet in the system was vastly outnumbered and falling back in disarray. Their commander had already sent evacuation orders, but there was not enough time to save more than a fraction of the population. Stone studied the tactical situation carefully. The swarm vessels were converging on the colony world from multiple vectors, their movements coordinated with inhuman precision. The Quellan ships were trying to form a defensive line, but kept getting flanked and forced to withdraw. Standard tactics will not work here, Stone muttered to himself. Then louder, all ships, this is Defiant Actual. We are not going to fight the swarm the way they expect. We are going to make them chase us. His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, Stone smiled grimly. Humans invented guerrilla warfare. Time to teach the galaxy what that means. Implement attack pattern Delta 7. All ships will engage in hit-and-run tactics. No one stays in one position for more than 30 seconds. We are going to turn their coordination into a weakness. The Earth fleet entered the Cerulean system at maximum velocity, their ships spreading out into a loose formation that seemed almost random to trained military observers, watching from Council command. But there was method in the apparent chaos. Each human vessel knew exactly where every other ship was and what it was doing. The swarm detected the new arrivals and diverted forces to engage. But as their biomechanical ships moved to intercept, the human vessels darted away, firing precision strikes at vulnerable points before disengaging. The swarm pursued, their hive mind coordination ensuring they moved as one. That was exactly what Stone was counting on. Now, he commanded, execute trap sequence. 20 human ships that had appeared to be fleeing suddenly reversed course, catching the pursuing swarm vessels in a crossfire. At the same instant, another group of Earth ships struck the swarm's original formation from an unexpected angle. The hive mind tried to adjust, redirecting forces, but found that every time they moved to engage one threat, another appeared. For the first time since the invasion began, the swarm was reacting instead of acting. The Battle of Cerulean System raged for 18 hours, and it became the turning point that no one had anticipated. Admiral Stone's tactics forced the swarm to adapt continuously, breaking the smooth coordination that made them so devastating. Human ships moved like sharks through water, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could respond effectively. But the swarm learned. That was the terrifying thing that Stone observed as the battle progressed. The hive mind absorbed every tactic used against it, adapted and countered. What worked in the first hour became less effective in the second, and nearly useless by the third. They are matching our response times, his tactical officer reported, strain evident in her voice. Enemy vessels are anticipating our attack vectors. Stone knew they were in danger of losing the advantage. The swarm's numbers were overwhelming, and if they could not be kept off balance, they would eventually overrun even the nimblest defense. He needed something the swarm could not predict, something so foreign to their collective intelligence that they would struggle to counter it. Open a channel to all human vessels, Stone commanded. Authorization code Stone Delta 9. Execute Operation Chaos. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. Stone ordered every ship captain to operate independently, to make their own tactical decisions without coordinating with the fleet. It was the opposite of standard military doctrine, the opposite of everything the swarm had learned to expect. Suddenly, the human fleet became 150 separate actors, each one unpredictable in its own way. Some captains chose aggressive frontal assaults, others preferred long-range harassment, still others focused on protecting evacuating civilian vessels. The swarm's hive mind, which excelled at predicting coordinated movements, found itself unable to process the sheer randomness of human individual initiative. Director Chen watched the battle unfold from the council chamber, where massive displays showed the tactical situation in real time. She held her breath as Earth's vessels danced through the chaos, each one a separate point of defiance against the swarm's collective will. Ambassador Quellis stood beside her, his gelatinous form tense with anxiety. "They are magnificent," he whispered, "and completely insane. No military force operates like that." "Humans do," Chen replied quietly. "We have always been too stubborn to follow the rules." By the 16th hour, the tide had clearly turned. The swarm forces in the Cerulean system were in disarray, unable to maintain their coordinated assault. The Quellan defense fleet, inspired by the human example and given time to regroup, rejoined the battle with renewed determination. But Stone was not satisfied with simply defending. He had studied the swarm's battle patterns and noticed something crucial. All their vessels in a given region operated from a central coordination nexus, a larger bioship that served as a local hub for the hive mind. If that nexus could be destroyed, the other vessels would lose coordination. Defiant to all vessels, Stone broadcast, "I have identified the enemy command node. I am going to destroy it. All ships do not follow me. Continue your current operations. This is a one-ship mission." Before anyone could protest, Stone's flagship accelerated toward the heart of the swarm formation. His crew watched in stunned silence as their admiral piloted them directly into the most heavily defended area of the battlefield. The swarm recognized the threat immediately. Dozens of bioships converged on the Defiant, their weapons tearing into the human vessel's shields. Damage reports flooded in from every section. The ship shuddered under sustained fire. "Sir, we cannot survive this assault," the tactical officer shouted over the alarms. "We do not need to survive," Stone said calmly. "We just need to get close enough. Engineering. Divert all power to forward shields and engines. Everything else goes offline, including life support. The bridge crew followed his orders without hesitation, understanding what their commander was truly ordering. This was a suicide run. But if they could take out that nexus, they would break the swarm's coordination across multiple systems. The Defiant plowed through enemy fire like a battering ram. Its armor melted under the assault. Sections of the ship explosively decompressed. Half the crew was dead or dying, but Stone kept the ship moving forward, his hands steady on the controls. 3,000 meters from the nexus. 2,000. 1,000. All hands, this is the Admiral. Stone's voice echoed through what remained of the ship's communication system. It has been an honor serving with you. Tell Earth what we did here today. At 500 meters, Stone armed every missile, every torpedo, every explosive device remaining on the ship. He set them all to detonate simultaneously. Then he locked the engines to maximum thrust and tied the controls open. The Defiant struck the swarm nexus at ramming speed, and the resulting explosion lit up the Cerulean system like a new sun. The nexus disintegrated, and with it, the coordinated control over every swarm vessel in the region. The bioships began moving erratically, their perfect synchronization broken. In the council chamber, displays showed the nexus destruction and the aftermath. For a moment, there was absolute silence as everyone processed what they had witnessed. Then Ambassador Quellis made a sound that the translator struggled to interpret, but that clearly conveyed grief and respect. He destroyed it, Chen said quietly, tears streaming down her face. Marcus destroyed it. But the tactical officer aboard one of the surviving human vessels was already implementing the next phase. All Earth ships, the Admiral's sacrifice has given us our opening. Commence full assault. Make his death count for something. The remaining human fleet fell upon the disorganized swarm forces with savage efficiency. Without their nexus, the bioships could not coordinate defenses or plan effective counters. One by one, they were destroyed or forced to retreat. After 18 hours of battle, the swarm withdrew from the Cerulean system entirely. Council forces across multiple sectors reported similar effects. The destruction of one nexus had somehow disrupted the swarm's overall coordination network. Their invasion faltered, their advance stopped. Within 3 days, the swarm had retreated back beyond the galactic rim, leaving behind devastated worlds but no permanent occupation. 1 week later, the full council convened for an emergency session. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member species present. Director Chen stood at the podium, no longer a petitioner but an equal among equals. Ambassador Telrix rose to speak, his scales showing colors that indicated deep respect. The Vrelnathi Empire wishes to formally withdraw all demands that Earth dismantle its fleet. Admiral Stone's sacrifice and the courage of all human forces during the swarm invasion have proven beyond doubt that humanity deserves full membership in this council. We offer a military alliance and request permission to name our newest battle carrier the Marcus Stone, in honor of your fallen admiral. Similar statements came from delegation after delegation. The Quellan Communion offered economic treaties with favorable terms. The Hexarian Trade Union granted humans access to key shipping routes. The Pilthian Federation proposed a mutual defense pact. Even the species that had been most hostile to Earth's initial revelation now spoke of friendship and partnership. Ambassador Krell stood last, his ancient voice carrying weight and wisdom. Earth came to us with hidden strength, and we reacted with suspicion and fear. But when the moment of truth arrived, humanity chose to fight not for themselves but for others. They showed us that strength without compassion is tyranny, but strength with compassion is nobility. The Council owes Earth a debt that cannot be easily repaid. Chen listened to it all with mixed emotions. They had won. Earth was now a full member of the galactic community, respected and valued. But the cost had been high. Admiral Stone was dead, along with hundreds of human crew members. The Defiant was gone. Victory felt hollow. When it was her turn to speak, Chen chose her words carefully. Earth accepts the Council's offer of full membership. We accept the alliances and partnerships being offered, but we do this with the understanding that respect must flow in all directions. We proved ourselves in battle, but we should never have needed to do so. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. The Council must change. New species cannot be expected to prove their worth through bloodshed. They cannot be exploited or intimidated. If Earth's experience teaches anything, It should be that trust and respect must be offered freely, not earned through sacrifice. Ambassador Quellis rippled in agreement. Director Chen speaks wisdom that shames us. The Council has operated for too long on assumptions of superiority and hierarchy. Perhaps it took humanity to show us that we had lost our way. In the days that followed, Earth's fleet returned home to a hero's welcome. Memorial services were held for Admiral Stone and all those who fell in the Battle of Cerulean System. Their names were inscribed on monuments, their deeds recorded in history, but the real legacy was more subtle. Across Council space, smaller and newer species watched what humanity had accomplished. They saw that it was possible to enter the galactic community on your own terms, to refuse victimhood, to demand respect rather than beg for it. The Council began implementing reforms, establishing protections for newly contacted species,